Have you ever wondered how peasants traveled in medieval times? Many people assume that medieval peasants never left the villages where they were born, believing that their entire lives were spent within the familiar boundaries of their home communities. Yet this perception does not fully capture the reality of peasant life. Although it is true that most peasants rarely ventured far from their homes, there were definite instances and circumstances that prompted them to travel. Their day-to-day existence generally revolved around the farm work they needed to perform in order to survive. Most of the day, peasants tended to their fields, livestock, and seasonal tasks, which naturally tied them to the land. Still, being a peasant did not mean you always stayed in the same place, and records show that movement, while limited, was certainly feasible. The occupation of peasants as farmers formed the backbone of medieval society, ensuring that crops were planted, harvested, and delivered to support both local communities and feudal obligations. When peasants did travel, many of them headed to local fairs or markets, where they could engage in the buying and selling of produce, livestock, and other goods essential to daily life. These markets also functioned as communal gatherings, providing a chance to meet people from neighboring villages, hear news from distant regions. While many of these trips were fairly short, focusing on commercial activities within a limited radius, some peasants journeyed further. This was especially likely if they had personal reasons for undertaking a longer voyage, such as a pilgrimage, which could become a defining event in their lives. Medieval pilgrims, regardless of social class, might spend many months or even years en route to holy sites, underscoring that extensive travel was not beyond a peasant's reach, given sufficient motivation and resources. But when they did travel, they had to use the roads, and medieval roads were not like the roads we use today. Road conditions in the medieval period differ from what modern travelers expect. People navigated routes that were often rough, muddy, or subject to seasonal wear and tear. In parts of Europe who had previously been ruled by the Roman Empire, the Romans had once built their famed roads. Portions remained usable for generations, sometimes receiving a degree of upkeep to prolong their utility. Even so, some Roman roads fell into neglect over the centuries, but there were also other paths. These routes might go through fields, forests, or rolling countryside, and while they were widely recognized as public passages, they were not uniform in quality. While using the medieval roads, they had to come up with ways to navigate and find their way. Without any contemporary devices like GPS or digital maps, travelers during this time relied heavily on knowledge shared by locals and basic markers. When a traveler arrived in an unfamiliar town, they could ask the people there what road led to the next destination on their route. They might have relied on prominent landmarks like churches, rivers, or crossroads to serve as visible markers. Often, roads were named after the places they led to, giving travelers a rough idea of where they were headed, and some roads featured markers indicating distances or notable landmarks. Such markers could take a variety of forms, but each one served the same purpose of keeping travelers on track in a world without printed road signs. When traveling could take days or weeks, medieval peasants needed to find places to stay. On the road, travelers often found places where they could seek shelter or sustenance. Taverns, inns, and other lodging establishments catered to a range of budgets and social standings, offering humble bedding in a stable for the less affluent or more comfortable private quarters for those able to pay higher fees. While these stops were not luxurious, they were essential to long-distance travel, as weary walkers or riders needed a safe place to rest and recover. In these establishments, peasants might come into contact with merchants, pilgrims, monks, and all manner of wanderers from different regions. Exchange of conversation, news, and practical tips formed part of the social tapestry that emerged in these roadside taverns. For those peasants who did embark on extended journeys, the experience offered a rare glimpse into a broader world. Walking for days, weeks, or months across changing landscapes presented an opportunity to witness new customs, local traditions, and the architecture of distant towns and cities. Even the simplest markets in foreign areas held items that might be unknown in a peasant's home village. These experiences, while not universal to all peasants, served to enrich the perspective of those who had the chance to travel. In doing so, these individuals gained stories and memories to share upon returning home, thereby spreading bits of knowledge to others who remained closer to their home. In the context of daily life, it is still fair to acknowledge that peasants spent most of their existence tending to their fields and animals. Their survival hinged on the predictable rhythms of the agricultural year, which left them little time for leisure or travel. However, necessity sometimes dictated movement, whether it involved delivering goods, fulfilling obligations to a lord, or searching for better opportunities elsewhere. Pilgrimages, markets, and the occasional need to visit relatives in another region all played a role in motivating peasants to leave the comfort of their villages. Despite the uncertainties of weather and road quality, peasants found ways to venture forth when they deemed it necessary or valuable. The evidence we have does suggest a mobility grounded in practicality and shaped by the constraints of feudal life. Through a combination of established market practices and societal acceptance of certain types of journeys, most notably religious pilgrimages, these rural folk did manage to see beyond the boundaries of the farms where they labored. Their travels, whether to nearby fairs or distant shrines, demonstrate that mobility existed, albeit on a smaller scale than we have today. This reality challenges the idea that medieval peasants never saw anything beyond the horizon of their home fields, revealing that, under the right circumstances, they traveled, expanding the scope of their world in both distance and experience. If you like this video, be sure to check out this video about the foods that medieval peasants ate. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.